Juvenile court in Washington state. What is it? How does it work? And what should you know about it? Well, if you're interested in juvenile court in Washington state, or you have a child or a young one who's been summoned to go to juvenile court, this is the video for you. My name is Lance Fryrear, and I'm a defense attorney in Lynnwood, Washington. My firm has been defending people charged with crimes, including juveniles, for more than 20 years. And juvenile court is really a different beast than adult court. There's different purposes, there's different options, and it's pretty scary if you've never been involved in the system to have to go to juvenile court, or for your child to have to go to juvenile court. So in this video, I'm going to cover three things. One, what is the jurisdiction of juvenile court? Who gets to go to juvenile court versus adult court? Two, what are some ways that juvenile court works? What are some things you need to know about how it's different and what options are available? And three, and most importantly, what are some pitfalls you need to avoid if you have a young person in your life that's been approached by police and either they are in juvenile court or they're not in juvenile court yet. So please stay to the end. Again, my name is Lance Fryrear. I make these videos to help educate the public. So if you find this video useful, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps us get more information out to more people. So, number one, what is juvenile court? Well, juvenile court is a court that's focused on rehabilitation as opposed to retribution. In juvenile court, if a person under 18 is charged with a crime, they call that person a respondent, not a defendant. And so who gets to go to juvenile court? Well, basically, if the defendant, the person accused of a crime in juvenile court, a respondent, is under the age of 18 at the time of charging, in most cases, they'll be charged into juvenile court for the crime and not adult court. There are some exceptions. 16 and 17-year-olds charged with traffic offenses will go to adult court. Think DUI or reckless driving. So if you're 16 or 17 with a traffic offense, you go to adult court. If you're 16 or 17 with any other type of offense, you go to juvenile court. And so what's the difference between juvenile court and adult court? Well, in juvenile court, the penalties are way less severe. They use a chart to look at an offender score, and there's something called local sanctions. In local sanctions, most juvenile offenses follow under local sanctions for a possible penalty, and that usually means there's a good chance of avoiding jail time. There's usually more of a community service or therapy focus. That's one difference. Another difference in juvenile court is that if your matter is resolved in juvenile court, oftentimes it might be able to be sealed later. There's even some automatic sealing of records. So juvenile court, again, is about helping the youth, while adult court is a lot more permanent. And so there is quite a big difference. So number two, what are some important differences about juvenile court, and how does juvenile court work? Well, if you have a young person who has been cited into juvenile court, they'll have to show up just like an adult court for an arraignment, but they're always going to need to bring a parent or guardian with them. And in juvenile court, there's not big bail amounts. There's usually lesser restrictions, but they want a parent there because at the arraignment, they are often going to order some conditions on the respondent, the person who's in trouble. It might be obey the household rules. It might be stay at home, except for going to court. There might be a curfew imposed. There's things that need to be addressed at the arraignment. And also in juvenile court, there's a really unique position, a probation officer that gets involved in the case, typically prior to any findings being found against the respondent. And what we tell our clients is you want to look at that probation officer as an asset, not as someone who's necessarily against the young person involved. They want to find out, what's going on in their life and why are they here? And, are they going to school? What are their grades? What type of help do they need? Again, because juvenile court, for the most part, is rehabilitation, not retribution. So that's something really different in juvenile court. So make sure you talk to your attorney, your public defender, your private attorney about the facts of the case and figure out how it is that your young person responded is best to interact with probation, because the court really listens to probation a lot in juvenile court. Another difference in juvenile court are the types of outcomes available. There's something called a deferred disposition. Basically, think about it this way. You're found guilty of the crime, you pay restitution, but eventually the crime gets dismissed. And that's pretty useful. It could be useful in an assault case or a serious property damage case, and that doesn't exist in adult court. Additionally, there's that automatic sealing of records that can happen on certain types of crimes in juvenile court. So it's not going to follow you around forever, which is a nice difference that we see in juvenile court. And then finally, there's something called diversion. So diversion is a chance for a juvenile to resolve an accusation, a crime that they're accused of, outside of the formal court process. So if you're watching this video, you might have gotten a letter about diversion. And is diversion a good idea or not? Well, generally we think it is, but you should contact an attorney. You can call our office if you want. But think about diversion as, hey, I'm going to get some counseling, might do some community service, and the case is never even going to be filed in court. So there's nothing to seal later. So it's really good for a young person's future and their record. And if you end up in juvenile court, sometimes you can get it sent back to diversion depending on the type of charge. More serious charges aren't eligible, but some assaults are, thefts, cases like that, maybe, paraphernalia, stuff like that. So you want to look at diversion as an option. So thanks for sticking with me to the end. Number 3 is the pitfalls, some common pitfalls to avoid. And this is probably the most important part of this video. The most important pitfall to avoid in juvenile court is losing juvenile court jurisdiction. Here's how we might think about it. Well, my kid is 17. He gets accused of assaulting another kid at school. It's a felony. But since he was 17 when the offense happened, he's going to stay in juvenile court, right? Wrong. Whether or not you stay in juvenile court depends on how old the respondent is at the time the case is actually charged. So if you have a young person who's going to turn 18 in the next 6 months or even the next year, don't assume the prosecutor is going to get to charging that case that quickly. If your young person turns 18, juvenile court has lost jurisdiction if it hasn't already been charged. And that's it's just a shame. It's a nightmare because now all of these opportunities that we had to get help now turn into retribution. And so it's important that you have an attorney because the attorney may be able to sort of bother the prosecutor's office and remind them what's going on. They do have systems, but prosecutors' offices are busy. We've seen it happen. My first job 25 years ago was at juvenile prosecutor's office in King County, and I did see some cases time out. I was just an intern, but I saw it happen. When I say time out, it got sent to adult court. Now, if your young person is charged when they're near 18, it's important whoever your attorney is makes a motion in court to maintain juvenile jurisdiction. If that's not done and they turn 18 and jurisdiction hasn't been extended, juvenile court could lose jurisdiction, and now your kid is in adult court. So that's one of the biggest things, pitfalls. The other pitfall about juvenile court is there is no right to a jury trial. All juvenile court trials are by judge. And so there's a little bit less leverage that the defense attorney has to make it hard on the prosecutor and force them to a jury trial where they have to convince 6 or 12 people like in adult court. Here, they only have to convince one judge. And, the judges have it hard in juvenile court. They see some really difficult situations. And so, some would say that it's harder to convince a judge in juvenile court of someone's innocence than it might be in adult court. And that's just opinion. It is a difficult place to be a judge, in my opinion. So I hope you find that helpful. If you do have a young person who's in juvenile court, you need some help, feel free to give our office a call. Again, my name's Lance Fryrear. We have the law offices of Lance Fryrear. We've been defending people charged with crimes for more than 20 years. And even if you don't have that situation, if you find this video useful, please please subscribe. I'll be able to keep putting out information. And if you give us a call with this problem, we'll do everything we can to help. We'll be there for you. Thank you.